Hello and welcome to the Headache Doctor podcast, where on this podcast, it's our mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about one of the most popular topics, both in clinic and then on this podcast, and that is sleep. It's something that we all do every day. We need it. If you're not able to sleep, that's a problem. Our bodies can't function for very long without sleep. And then especially when you're dealing with headaches or migraines, not only is it important for the body to be able to manage and tolerate pain itself on a neurological level, but also how we sleep impacts the level of tension and if we are going to get a headache in the morning, if we're setting ourselves up for success for the day to come. And so we're going to touch on sleep position. We're going to touch on the types of headaches that we see associated with sleep, the type of pillow you should be using, and then all of the different things that you can do to kind of troubleshoot or problem solve in order to get better quality sleep. We have had sleep specialists on this podcast. We have had breathing, airway, tongue-tie specialists. We've had a lot of conversation about sleep and around sleep on this podcast. And what we personally talk about and our expertise at Novera is on the positions of sleep and then physically what your body's going through when you sleep. Now, this happens to be the most practical area of this conversation of sleep is changing the position you sleep in, the postures, the supports that you have, the types of pillow you use, and then understanding that so that you can get better quality sleep and limit your chance of waking up with a headache. Now, if you wake up with headaches, there's a really good chance that you need to pay attention to your sleep position, likely. Maybe you're not getting good quality sleep. Maybe it's an airway thing. There's all sorts of things that could be happening. But if you're waking up with headaches, that's an indication that something is happening while you're sleeping. Now, for most people, we want them to get to the point where sleep is therapeutic. Sleep should be therapeutic. It should help us manage pain when we get deep sleep. And so if you're waking up and starting your day and you already have a headache, and what I mean by that is you get out of bed and you have a headache, or like you wake up and you realize that your head is hurting. That's what I mean when I say wake up with a headache. If you wake up and then within an hour or two, a headache starts to develop, that there is enough time in between you waking up and the headache onset that potentially it was not necessarily sleep itself, but something that you did first thing in the morning that contributed to the headache onset. And so if you have a pattern of waking up and you realize that you have a headache, we're going to talk about how to mitigate that. Now, if that doesn't describe you and you are someone that doesn't necessarily associate with a morning headache, but you just have headaches in general, maybe it's spontaneous, maybe it doesn't have a pattern to when it onsets, this podcast is still going to be helpful because everyone that we work with here at Novera Headache Center, we want their sleep to be the best that it can possibly be. Sleep, even if you're not waking up with a headache, is going to contribute. It's either going to be therapeutic or it's going to add tension to the neck, shoulders, jaw. And so when we go through coaching with clients from all over, we talk about how to get things from the category of increasing the amount of tension that's running through your body to therapeutic. And so we spend a substantial amount of time sleeping every day. And so we want to take that position that you're in and make sure that it's therapeutic and restful and it's not contributing overall to your headaches or migraines. So again, even if you're not waking up with a headache or migraine, your sleep position, your sleep posture, what you do when you sleep, the quality of sleep that you have is going to impact your ability to tolerate headaches or migraines and can definitely contribute to your presentation, even if you haven't necessarily drawn the connection there. Okay, so let's first start with sleep position. About 16% of people sleep on their stomach. 75% of people or so will sleep on their side, and then we've got some back sleepers out there as well. So stomach sleeping for some is going to be perceived as the most comfortable position. It's even if you have a really tight neck, it can definitely still be perceived as this is the only position I can fall asleep in. Part of that, I'd venture a guess, everything that we do in life is forward. And so when we sleep, being forward is sort of like shoulders and low back, even like hip flexors, like everything is able to relax a little bit better. I shouldn't say everything, but those certain segments of our body, shoulders especially, are able to relax. Oftentimes when people lay on their back, they feel like their shoulders are naturally kind of sort of like stretching. They maybe even have like some numbness tingling through their hands when they're sleeping on their back. And that's because, I mean, it shouldn't necessarily happen when you're sleeping on your back, but if we're so tight, sometimes people are stretching through their pecs when they're on their back. And so sometimes stomach sleeping feels like the best or most comfortable position, at least to fall asleep. And so what we oftentimes have to do is change the mindset of these stomach sleepers. So stomach sleeping, I'll back up a little bit. Stomach sleeping is going to be tough on the neck. Side sleeping can be okay, but can also be tough. It just depends on your pillow setup. And then back sleeping is usually pretty safe. All right. So the whole theme of what we're going to talk about here is reducing the amount of stress, tension, physical stress on your neck, shoulders, jaw while you're sleeping. All right. If we do this, your quality of sleep will improve. The whole idea of sleep is getting into the deep REM sleep. So the cycle of sleep, and where you dream and where your body will truly find the rest that it needs, and you'll get all the good benefits of sleep are in that REM sleep, the REM cycle. And so reducing the amount of tension running through your body will allow you to get into that REM sleep easier. It's not as if you're aware of the tension while you're sleeping. So we're just talking about a level of deep sleep that naturally your body will be able to get to when you support your shoulder, your neck, your jaw, and they're not like a little bit irritated. When you're sleeping, obviously you're not conscious of a lot of things that are, anything that's really happening in your body. So your body tunes out anything like a pain signal until it reaches a point where you wake up and you're like, wow, like I'm in the middle of a migraine, which oftentimes people will describe like they wake up with an aura or something like that, but you don't feel everything leading up to that. And so that's why you can sleep through the night. You wake up and you're like, wow, I have a headache. Your brain starts to realize the pain signal. And so when we've talked about pain science and how the body interprets the pain signal and whether it pays attention to it or ignores it. So again, the pain is subjective. And so your brain's able to tune it out. And so just because you are sleeping doesn't mean that you're in the best position. So we can't necessarily assume like, oh, I fall asleep easiest on my stomach as like my body is like fine in that position. We know just based on physics, anatomy, that the neck, and especially when the upper part of the neck isn't moving the way it should, it doesn't like to be rotated. Our neck can rotate about 80, 90 degrees. And so when you're on your stomach, you got to breathe still. So you turn your head to the side and you're in that position for however long period of time. So like 8 or 9 hours, maybe you toss and turn a little bit, but even if you lay in your stomach for 5-10 minutes with a tight neck, it's going to be a little bit aggravating. So if we multiply that by, 8 hours or whatever, the whole time you're sleeping, it's going to lead to a headache in the morning, or at least like your neck not feeling like it should. And so we want people to either sleep on their side with good support or on their back. Back sleeping is fine because, the idea is your neck's kind of in a neutral position. Your shoulders are relaxed. Maybe there's even like a little bit of a therapeutic effect of like your shoulders being able to relax in a neutral position. And so let's talk about side sleeping though for a little bit. Most people are side sleepers. And so when you're on your side, you want to, one, start with the pillow under your head. We recommend a foam pillow. It's a Splintech side sleeper pillow. I don't make any money off of saying that. It's just, I've looked at a lot of pillows and that one seems to be the most supportive. It's thicker than what most foam pillows are and it holds its shape. So it's what I personally use at home, and we do sell it here at Novera, and we're working on a way to be able to sell it online. And so I guess eventually that will be something that we make money on. But it's it is the pillow we recommend. For if you're listening to this and you go to our website and it's not up there, just go to Amazon and look at Splintech Side Sleeper Pillow, small, medium, large, and it has a height sort of like chart that will coordinate to the size of the pillow, the thickness of it, but that's not always completely true. So it's more like if you're a really petite person, try the small, and then like the broader shoulder individuals, we would suggest the large. So it's more like your shoulder width. And then if you have a really soft bed, know that the pillow is going to feel thicker than maybe like the height chart shows. So you sink into your soft bed, your pillow won't sink in as much, and so it'll feel thicker. If you have a firm bed, it's probably true to the chart. But anyways, side sleepers need a foam pillow. If you're not interested in buying another pillow, just find a foam one in your house and use foam. Foam doesn't lose its shape, so your head needs to be supported well enough where like your neck isn't going to be side bent for an extended period of time. The problem we see here in clinic oftentimes is that the atlas, the first bone in the neck, should shift side to side. So normal function is a shifting side to side when we side bend. And oftentimes that's just like stuck one direction. And typically it's like to the right, and people have this like right side bend to their head and neck. And if you look in the mirror, you might notice it. I've talked about it on this podcast for sure, but it's that's something that we don't want to play into at night. So if your pillow's not as supportive as it should be, and you're sleeping on your right side and your head's kind of tipped a little bit, that can be kind of irritating to the upper part of the neck. And so we want a foam pillow that's going to hold its shape and not collapse on you. Now, if you think your pillow is supportive enough, a good test for you would be to evaluate if you put your arm under your pillow, because if you are, that means it's not supportive enough and you're feeling like you need extra height using your arm. And then if you are folding your pillow up or bunching it up throughout the night. So if you wake up and your pillow's not exactly how you set it up, I would suggest a foam pillow is going to be a better option than the standard pillow you're using. Okay, let's move down to an additional pillow for side sleepers, which is one under the arm. So you want to hug a pillow, have a thick like throw pillow. So this is a pretty big pillow and you want to hug it. You want your shoulder to be supported. You don't want it to droop forward. You don't want it to pull on your neck. We've got a few muscle groups that run from the shoulder blade, upper part of the shoulder, to the neck. And so if your shoulder's drooping forward because you don't have a pillow, you're sort of, we call it like a pseudo stomach sleeping, like you're rolling enough that your neck might be feeling some rotation, but then also your shoulder is sort of like asking your neck to hold it up throughout the night. So hug a pillow, a thick throw pillow so that your shoulder's supported. And then the third pillow, so side sleeping is a high maintenance position, put it in between your knees. And this can be a thin pillow. It's just more for comfort. We want your knees together. We don't want the bottom leg straight, top leg bent. We don't want you twisted. Okay. Now, if you've heard me say this before, and so even people that go through our process in person within like a 6 to 8 week time frame, we talk about it early on, and then they sort of like forget it, or they get more relaxed on their position, and then we have to remind them. Okay, so the last time I talked about sleep position was in June of this year, I believe, and so it's been about 6 months, and it's time for a refresher. This is very important. You need to sleep in a position that is conducive to your physical body being able to relax and not increasing or playing into the problem that's already there. Now, so most people are going to be side sleepers. If you're a stomach sleeper, you're probably going to transition to your side. So that's hugging the pillow, putting one in between your knees, and then the foam pillow. And then if you can sleep on your back, then sleep on your back. Now, if you're a back/side sleeper, I would suggest you either commit to your back or you do the side sleeper setup, because doing one or the other is tricky, because side sleepers need a thicker pillow and they need the 2 additional pillows. It's not really great. I mean, you can do it. You can sleep on your back, on your side on these thicker pillows. But ideally, if you're going to sleep on your side, you just start there and you try to end there. Like you just sort of stay on your side. Again, like it's okay to be on your back, but these pillows are not designed for back sleeping. And so it's okay to be on your back, but if you feel like you can't be on your back like for most of the night or nearly all of it, I would say probably cater more to side sleeping with an occasional back sleeping. I hope that makes sense. All right. So why this all matters. So we don't want the neck to be rotated. We don't want it to be side bent. The problem we're dealing with headaches or migraines is at least the majority of like the pain signal is going to be coming from the upper part of the neck. And that's where we get most of our rotation and side bending, nodding as well. But we want to have the neck in as neutral a position as possible. And to do that, we need the thicker pillow, or we need the back sleeping. So the stomach sleeping is not conducive because it causes us to rotate. And so the sustained position in a rotated position adds stress to the joints, and then that irritation eventually leads to a headache when you wake up. Side bending is really sensitive, so even like a few degrees of a side bent position, so even if your pillow's like close but not quite there, it's still something worth considering, because what we see clinically is like, so just below your ear on the side, so behind your jaw below your ear, there's a little bony part that might stick out. Oftentimes that's like really sensitive on people. That's the atlas, and that's where that side bending should kind of occur. At least when it's not, that's the area that gets really sensitive. And so if that describes you, like, you really need to pay attention to this, if there's a side bent position while you sleep, because that's putting stress through the atlas, and that typically gets like really irritated. Like if that's sensitive, you probably have some pretty bad headaches, and it's probably like either on and off and really bad, or like a low grade, or just like a more of a constant, like you're on edge type thing. Okay, so we talked about morning headaches. The other type of headache that points to sleeping being an issue is like a temple type pain, or like your jaw. You wake up and your jaw feels really tight. Now, if you've gone to the dentist and they tell you clench or grind your teeth, one of the journeys I went down years ago was like, I never really got a solid answer as to like why the clenching or grinding was happening. Like dentists never really said why. They were just like, oh, you're clenching or grinding, and so you have to wear this night guard, or and so I wanted to keep asking the question why, and the best explanation I have heard are from these providers that do breathing, airway, tongue tie releases. So essentially, underdeveloped jaw trying to open up an airway causes this movement within your mouth, and the teeth obviously are going to be grinding or clenching, trying to open up the airway, and so that tension develops as you sleep. And so if you wake up with a bunch of jaw pain or temple pain, or like your jaw's popping or clicking, you're definitely going to have neck issues and things that physically need to be worked on. That's where we come in. We'd also probably start thinking about or looking into something like myofunctional therapy, checking for tongue ties, and looking at the breathing airway portion of it. So other signs that sleep is an issue, if you've obviously been diagnosed with sleep apnea, or if you just wake up not feeling rested, if you feel like your quality of sleep is pretty bad, just know that you should be sleeping through the night. You should be dreaming, remembering your dreams. If you are mouth breathing, if you cannot breathe through your nose, so close your lips together for about 5 minutes, for 5 minutes. And if you cannot do that, you have to open your mouth and sort of gasp for air. That means you probably have a obstruction blocking your nasal passage, where we should be breathing most of the time, nearly all of the time. So, but that should be pretty comfortable. So it's just an easy test to know if like you have a hard time breathing through your nose or not. Obviously if you're tossing or turning, try a different sleep position, or improving your sleep position like what we've talked about. The other thing that recently with Dr. E, who's a physical therapist out in New York, that we talked about is overbreathing. And so this is something like anecdotally, I did an exercise for overbreathing and slept like fantastic that night. But essentially when we breathe, there's the potential obstruction or airway issues to get oxygen in. But once we have the oxygen running through our blood and in circulation, so our red blood cells and the hemoglobin, is it able to release that and we use all the oxygen that's available to us? Another way of putting that is CO2 tolerance. So when you take a deep breath in, can you pause before you exhale and then pause before you inhale? And so our body can be sort of untrained. And so we're shallow breathing in a sense, or we're over breathing because we're not utilizing all the oxygen we have. And so you can train that. So it's sort of the chemical level of breathing. Dr. E talks about it on the podcast we did. It's probably a couple months ago. Look it up with Dr. Urson Religioso. Really fantastic podcast. You guys will find it fascinating. But the idea is to do one of these exercises where you can like box breathe. So inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Or the exercise he talked about was plugging your nose, holding your breath, and seeing how many steps you can get before you have to breathe again. And doing that for, pause for a minute and then do that for 10 minutes. And that's it. The exercise I did where I felt like I slept really well that night. So things that you can do to change. I mean, we've been talking about them as we've been going through the podcast, but sleep position is the big one. So control what you can control. Even if you have like sleep apnea or obstructive sleep apnea, things like that. Control what you can control. So you can't necessarily control like your airway, but you can control like the position of your head and your neck, how supported it is, the position you sleep in. You can also change what you do before going to bed and then when you get up in the morning. So oftentimes it's like sitting on the couch, watching a movie, reading a book, things like that. So we're more sedentary, and maybe incorporate some stretches, some movements before bed so that your neck isn't feeling tight going to bed. And then again, first thing in the morning. And then you can always do like little things like nasal strips, or there's this stuff called Clear. It's a xylitol spray to help like reduce congestion. Things like that can help you breathe through your nose at night. There's also mouth taping, which is becoming more popular. And you can do little tricks like that to try to improve your ability to breathe properly and get you into deeper sleep at night. So there you go. There's sleep. As we look into the new year in 2025, I hope you all have your best years yet when it relates to headaches or migraines. And I hope that we're a part of that journey and able to help you. Thank you all for listening to the Headache Doctor podcast as we continue on this mission to educate and empower everyone with headaches and migraines so that you can break free from a life of fear of your next headache or migraine and dependence on medication. I'll see you next week.